Hey everyone, this presentation is brought to you by Nanalyze, a boutique media and research firm founded by finance professionals with decades of experience. We share insights about disruptive technology investments in a language that is future-proof and easy to understand. No financial jargon or technobabble. Today we're going to talk about Samsara Stock, an IoT leader worth a look. The Toyota Hilux is indestructible. That theory was first tested by Britain's acclaimed television show Top Gear, but that hardly compared to what YouTuber Whistle and Diesel did this past summer. After subjecting a Hilux pickup truck to an unfathomable amount of abuse, he took it to Moab and ran against a custom-built off-road machine in a feat you have to see to believe. Going up Hell's Gate backwards? Yes, please. The grand finale was to deprive that poor little engine that could of coolant. Yet after miles of such abuse, it still started on the first try. The only thing left to do was drop it from 10,000 feet, which finally did the trick. That demolished Hilux will now be made into scrap iron, which will perhaps be used to build another vehicle. It's what the Sanskrit word samsara encapsulates, the eternal cycle of life and rebirth, and a fitting word to name a company that expects to be adding value to humanity well beyond the lifespan of its founders. About Samsara Stock. Samsara emerges as leader in industrial IoT was the title of an article we published several years ago. After taking in $930 million in funding, Samsara is now seeking more capital through an initial public offering that expects to raise $1 billion. The Samsara S1 filing quickly descends into a mire of buzzwords, so it's important to focus on the basics. The Samsara Connected Operations Cloud targets a $54.6 billion total addressable market comprised of the below three opportunities. The Connected Fleet opportunity, which is represented by the $32.9 billion global commercial telematics market. The Connected Sites opportunity is represented by the nearly $20 billion commercial global surveillance market. And the connected equipment opportunity represented by the $1.8 billion trailer and cargo container tracking market. The two largest opportunities in this list of three make up at least 80% of the nearly $500 million in annual recurring revenues that Samsara brings in. This is a pure software as a service SaaS business that's growing like a weed. Recurring revenues are not the same as revenues, of course, but revenues are also growing at a nice consistent rate as well. For Q3 2021, Samsara brought in about $114 million in revenues. If you annualize that, you're not far off from the $500 million in annual recurring revenues. This rapid revenue growth is part of Samsara's plan to capture market share as quickly as possible while worrying about profitability later down the road, says the company. A significant part of our business strategy is to focus on long-term growth over short-term financial results. Thinking with a long-term mindset is why the Japanese were able to produce the Hilux. There are more than 50,000 companies over 100 years old in Japan. 3,886 of them are over 200 years old. Samsara's focus on the long term is what will create a durable company that will last into the next century. Fleet connectivity, connected sites, connected equipment, these are all themes where IoT connectivity grows in importance, especially as we enter the age of vehicle autonomy. Samsara IoT as a service. We prefer SaaS businesses, but not all are created equal. Samsara is a pure SaaS play that's ticking all the boxes. Contract lengths typically span 3 to 5 years and are non-refundable and non-cancelable. No single customer accounts for more than 1.5% of their ARR, with over 25,000 customers spending at least $1,000 per year. Around 13,000 core customers spend $5,000 or more per year. The number of customers spending greater than $100,000, about 700 customers now, is growing consistently over time. So is their net retention rate. the ability to extract more dollars from existing customers, which sits at 115%. Just over 90% of the revenues come from the United States, though the percentage of international revenues is slowly expanding to reduce single country risk. The Samsara solution is industry agnostic and well diversified across industry type. Earlier, we talked about how Samsara is focused on capturing a $56.4 billion opportunity as quickly as possible, and that's reflected in the fact that over half their employees work in sales and marketing. It's a smart strategy because that same $56.4 billion opportunity is expected to expand at a compound annual growth rate of 21% over the next 4 years, reaching nearly $100 billion by the end of 2024. It's a blue ocean opportunity that's trying to be captured by a fragmented number of companies, many of whom are collecting vehicle data without even knowing what to do with it. Wejo and Autonomo are two examples of that, those two companies that recently had IPOs via SPAC. The concept of fleet management is hardly new. We've come across loads of companies offering various devices, platforms, and full stack software solutions. As with all leading edge platforms that involve collecting big data and analyzing it with machine learning algorithms, he who collects the biggest data set will ultimately win in the long run, or she. Samsara processed 72,298 years worth of video footage in 2020, which drove over 1 billion AI-based detections. This type of data would come in awful handy when it comes to commercial vehicle autonomy. For example, Samsara is said to have identified more than 20 million stop signs, the vast majority of which are not identified in publicly available mapping datasets. So should you buy Samsara stock? We have no idea what stock you should buy, but we're firmly convinced what vehicle you should buy if you're looking for durability. One reason the Toyota Hilux is indestructible is because the Japanese typically think 100 years forward when it comes to business planning. Samsara is also thinking over the long term, prioritizing market share above all else. We've seen numerous firms dabbling in video safety and telematics, and Samsara's emergence as a leader in multiple large TAMs results in an attractive IoT SaaS play that we'd love to have a piece of at the right price. The great thing about our simple valuation ratio is we only need last quarter's revenues to determine what we're willing to pay for shares of any given company. Like every other high-profile IPO these days, we expect the company to be richly priced out of the gate. If Samsara's last valuation came in at $5.4 billion, then double that probably wouldn't be out of the picture. Would we buy shares of Samsara at a $10 billion valuation? Using our simple valuation ratio, we can determine an appropriate valuation without even knowing the stock price. So we can take the market capitalization and divide that by annualized revenues. If the market cap is $10 billion, we can divide that by last quarter's revenues of 113.82 million times 4. The number we get is 22. Yep, we sure might buy it, but we wouldn't buy shares if the market cap exceeded $18.2 billion because then the simple valuation ratio would exceed our cutoff of 40. Once Samsara stock becomes publicly traded, we'll be able to make a judgment call on whether or not this IoT stock can find a place in our own tech stock portfolio. Should we decide to make a move on Samsara stock, Nanalyze Premium annual subscribers will be the first to know. To conclude, Samsara stock offers retail investors a great way to play the IoT technology theme with a focus on vehicle telematics, fleet management, and video safety. Being able to analyze a company's physical operations with machine learning algorithms means this IoT solution creates efficiencies, something that's particularly relevant following the COVID pandemic, which has all but decimated global supply chains. On a side note, Samsara's revenues certainly didn't take a hit when the pandemic hit. Temporary impacts aside, wide adoption of the Samsara platform can only be expected as global enterprises look for ways to accomplish more with fewer resources. Should the initial public offering go through as planned, Samsara common stock will trade under the ticker symbol IoT. Thanks for listening. We've got a customer on chat we've got to take care of, so we'll let you go. Put your comments in the comment section. Make sure that you like the like button and make sure to sign up for our YouTube channel. Talk to you later.